Hello everyone. Today we will talk about addiction, and we will look at addiction from different points of view in order to get a much broader understanding of the addiction and its causes. And I think the best definition that I've heard was the one that Gabor Mate gave it. He's a Canadian physician. And Gabor Mate said that addiction is any behavior that offers us temporary pleasure or relief that harms us in a long-term perspective and that we cannot stop. And I think that explains the essence of addiction perfectly. And it's about all types of addiction, including drugs, alcohol, sex, internet, gambling, and stuff like that. But our society has interestingly divided all the addictions into groups according to Gabor Mate, and I agree with him completely. And the society has a different opinion about, for example, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and gambling, and a totally different view towards internet addiction, food addiction, sex addiction, which doesn't really cause such a negative reaction. But, friends, addiction is addiction, and it has a very destructive nature in any form. Okay? So we have to be careful with all the things I've mentioned. But let's focus on drug addiction today. Okay? So from a medicine point of view, it is a disease which has a lifelong diagnosis. So it's a lifelong disease. And I completely agree with that, because we all know cases where people relapse after 10 years, 15 years, 18 years even. So the fact that it has a lifelong diagnosis is absolutely reasonable. From a psychological point of view, it's a personality disorder that causes changes in the way a person thinks and behaves, and we will talk about this a bit later. From the 12-step program point of view, it's a disease that affects 4 areas. So it's a biological, psychological, sociological, spiritual disease. And let's talk about that for a second. Biological. I think it's obvious that the use of psychoactive substances harms the internal organs, and in time you can see this affecting the external aspect of a person. So the color of the skin changes, the person loses his or her teeth and stuff like that. But I think the worst part of it is that it affects the biochemical processes in the brain. And I mean the hormonal secretion, okay? So, if a person has never used psychoactive substances, he has an absolutely functional biochemical mechanism of the brain. So, a person wakes up in the morning, and the sun is shining, and the birds are singing, and it's the weekend, and he has a lift in the mood. He has a great mood. He has interests. He wants to call someone. He wants to meet up with someone. He wants to do stuff. He feels good. He feels a wave of pleasure. Okay? But once we interfered in this mechanism by using psychoactive substances, it doesn't work that well anymore. So, a drug addict that wakes up in the morning, gets nothing from sunshine, from the birds singing, stuff like that. It's all very depressive, it's all black and white. He's very apathic, doesn't have any interest, he doesn't want to do anything. But the good news is, once you stop using drugs, it takes a while like from 3 to 5 years. And these processes start being functional enough in order to have a happy and fulfilled life. So it passes, you get better. I'm not sure whether it completely regenerates. I don't think so. But it's good enough in order to have a decent life, a decent quality of life. So that was the biological part of it. Psychological. It's related to the biochemical changes in the brain, but a person's thought processes changes, which affects the behavior. So a person loses interests, has mood swings, has a lot of apathy. Everything is quite meaningless, pointless. Life seems depressing, life seems black and white. And I think that's the biggest problem of drug addiction, is adapting to a sober life again, because everything is just so depressing and pointless. But it passes. But I think this is the main reason why people relapse and return to drugs, because it seems unbearable. So I don't think the physiological part of addiction is the worst one, because medicine has gone a long way and we have really effective detox processes and stuff like that. I think it's the psychological bit that keeps people relapsing into addiction. Next, the sociological aspect. I think it's quite obvious that a drug addict in a natural way isolates himself or herself from society. Because of interests, you start communicating more with people that sell drugs and stuff like that. And I think you isolate yourself from society because you feel ashamed and you feel guilty for the life you're living. You feel ashamed because you use drugs, because you do stuff like lie to your friends, lie to your parents, steal from friends, manipulate and stuff like that. You feel ashamed for the person you've become, and you feel guilty for betraying someone's expectations. So you naturally isolate yourself from society. And the last aspect, spiritual. The entire spiritual construction or essence of a person is absolutely collapsing in drug addiction, because your values, your principles of life, they change completely, and you start doing stuff that you never thought you would ever do, like the ones I've mentioned. You steal from your parents, you lie to your friends, you manipulate, you abuse people's trust. So your entire spiritual essence is collapsing. Next, the specialists in the field of treating drug addiction all agree that it is simply a way of self-medicating, which means that we feel a certain emotional discomfort or emotional pain, and that's the only way that we subconsciously know how to deal with it. So we try to self-medicate this pain. Where does the pain come from? It's always related to emotional trauma. It's always related basically to childhood. We interact with the world when we are small, and things happen to us, and we gain these emotional traumas, and they cause us to feel a certain emotional discomfort when we grow up. And there might be different reasons. Even the same shame or guilt might be reasons. Where do they come from? Before addiction? Very simple. We get traumatized when we receive a message from the world that we are not good enough, that we are bad, that we are ugly, that we are stupid, right? And we have fears. We have insecurities. We're not confident. We feel inferior. That causes shame. We are ashamed of who we are. And we might seek relief from such an emotional discomfort. Guilt. We might feel guilty because we don't meet someone's expectations, society's expectations, our teachers' expectations, our parents' expectations. So we feel guilty for not meeting these expectations, and we want to seek relief. We want to self-medicate this guilt. So friends, think about this. If at first it might seem that you start using drugs because your friends were using, because you wanted to look cool, because you wanted to fit into a group, possibly. But I think that's a very superficial understanding of things. And if you dig a little deeper, and that's precisely what should happen in the process of rehabilitation, you find out that it was simply a way of dealing with a certain emotional discomfort. Why? Because not everyone in your neighborhood started using drugs. And they were as available as they were available to you. And they were in the same circle. But they never tried it. They never resorted to psychoactive substances. But you did. Why? They went to school. They learned languages. They went to dancing classes. They just went on about their business. You didn't. You went there. You tried the drug. And you knew it's gonna ruin you. I mean, come on. We all know that it's bad. So when you dig a little deeper, you understand that you were feeling a certain discomfort. And that's the only way at the time that you subconsciously tried to cope with that discomfort. Another way of looking at things, and I think it's a very good reason not to try using psychoactive substances ever again in recovery, is that it's an allergy. We have an allergy to psychoactive substances. It causes an allergic reaction that we cannot control, and we start abusing them. Okay, so you can look at this just like looking at a person with not allergies. Now that causes a reaction which is potentially deadly and very harmful to this person. It's the same for us. So, friends, don't ever touch psychoactive substances in recovery because you are allergic. We are allergic. It causes a reaction that is very harmful and you will not be able to control it. Okay, friends, so I really hope that we all gained a much broader understanding of addiction and its causes. And it's always about emotional trauma, and it's always about a way of self-medicating this discomfort. Thank you for watching, friends. I'll see you soon. I wish you all the best.